Welcome to the Customer Success Playbook podcast, where we're all about elevating your customer success game. I'm Roman Trebon, and with me is my co-host, Kevin Metzger. We're here to bring you the latest insights, inspiration, and expertise from top leaders in the field of customer success. Kevin, how you doing today?
Doing great, Roman. How about yourself?
I think my week, Kevin and I were talking a little bit before the show started. Kev, your week was started off a little, you put an all-nighter to start the week. So I think I'm in better shape than you are as we get started here.
Yeah. It was a fun weekend running into Monday, or fun week starting Monday.
Yeah.
Roman, I'm super excited about today's show. In today's episode, we're going to talk about organizational alignment through the entire company around customer success. We'll discuss how companies can integrate customer success into the sales, marketing, account management, support, and product development teams, and how an organization can create a structure that engages the whole organization to go above and beyond to meet the needs of their customers. We'll explore common challenges faced during this process and discover valuable insights on fostering customer-centric culture with the goal of driving unparalleled customer satisfaction and success.
Yeah, we got a great guest today, Kev, to talk about this. So, Kev, if you would have asked me at the beginning when we first launched this podcast, how long would it take us to reach 3 different countries in terms of guests? I wouldn't have said within 10 episodes, right? But today we're joined by Sue Nabeth Moore. She's a prominent customer success thought leader who's been recognized by Engati, Smart Carrot, and Success Hacker as a top CS strategist and influencer. Sue has paved the way for customer success in Europe and is the co-founder of Success Chain, a service company providing coaching, consulting, and training programs to help customer success leaders and teams drive win-win outcomes for clients and their organizations. Sue has also been actively organizing different customer events around Europe for many years to help the CS community move forward. She has also worked with numerous companies to set up and evolve their customer success organizations. Sue, welcome to the show.
Thank you to both of you, Kevin and Roman. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I can't think of someone better to bring on the show, Sue, to talk about this complex, and I'm going to say complex challenge companies are facing. So let's start off with this, Sue. How do companies, as they're looking at, to make customer success a function beyond the customer success organization, how do they begin this journey of integrating customer success into every aspect of their business?
First of all, you have to do a lot of education around what we mean by customer success, right? Because I think that is something which is still, unfortunately, very misinterpreted and misunderstood. So I think that the first thing is to really explain what we mean by customer success. What is the mission statement for customer success within the organization? And of course, a mission statement from one company to the next is something can be very varied. It's never a one-size-fits-all mission statement. So I think really we need to, first of all, define what we mean by customer success. And that, of course, is contextualized. And really look at customer success as part of the strategy. I think what we're seeing today and the trends that I'm seeing in the different startups and even the scale-ups that we're collaborating with is that customer success is kind of parachuted as a tactical approach. It's very operational and it's not part of the strategy. It's not perceived as being part of the strategy. Now, I know that you, Kevin and Roman, you both had experience in the world of customer experience. And we've seen that customer experience has been around for longer than customer success. And customer experience has always been a very strategic top-down approach, whereas customer success is more of this operational tactical approach. So I think we in the world of customer success, we have a lot to learn from the world of customer experience, which, as we know, started in the B2C world, and in customer success, which what we're in now is in the B2B world. So we need to somehow merge the two approaches so that customer success is no longer just this parachuted tactical operational approach, which we're trying to put into place and often struggling with, but it should become part of the strategy. And that brings me to another point, because when I was talking about the strategy of customer success, for me, the strategy does not just mean parachuting yet another functional silo onto the already existing functions of a company. For me, customer success goes beyond just this functional team as we know it, which we call customer success, and in fact should be something which is infused top down to all the functions of the company.
Yes. So when we're talking about infusing top down, right, that means we really need leadership that's totally bought in. Yes. If leadership's starting a customer success organization, you hope there's at least some level of buy-in, although they may be buying in on the fact that, hey, we need kind of an operational support group for our customers, which is often how, as you mentioned, it starts. How do you, let's say you've come into an organization that's got a kind of operational support for the customer that they're calling customer success, and you're coming in as a leader of that organization. What are some of the steps you would take to move from that operational support role to more of a customer-driven, customer goal-oriented organization, and how do you drive that both up and across the organization?
Yeah, I think that in fact, because what we're saying is traditionally that is what is happening, that we're actually parachuting this operational team on the existing teams. That's one of the reasons why it's so difficult and we're still struggling to make customer success work. I think if we from the very outset perceive customer success as this company-wide mantra, and so that we are infusing this as something which is put right in the very first place, right from when we're designing the product. We're not designing a product anymore, but we're designing everything with an outcomes kind of mindset. Then that means that, we're not just having a fantastic product team designing the product, but everybody becomes involved in dividing the services around this product. So to come back to your question, if in the majority of cases, which we are, unfortunately, where we're coming into an organization where they've only put that parachuted operational team into place, I think it takes a lot of internal change management, which should take place both bottom up, but also top down. So if you're a leader of that customer success operations, for example, and you're struggling to get everybody to row the same boat as you, in the same direction, of course, then I think you should start by evangelizing internally how you as a customer success leader and your team can actually help the other functional teams to do better their jobs, right? If we're stating that customer success is something which everybody contributes to, and they do, and we know that for a fact, because if you just look at the reasons for churn, for example, the reasons for churn are so varied that, in fact, everybody can contribute in reducing churn. So if you can have that customer success leader and their team understand how their internal customers are working, what are the challenges of their internal customers, and by internal customers, I mean the other functional roles like sales, support, product team, perhaps professional services, etc. So understand what are their objectives and how customer success can feed into those objectives, so that in turn, each of the functional roles can then better serve the objectives of the customers, right? And one of the things that the customer success leader can do is to obviously go around those different functional teams, interview them, understand, what their objectives are. And if we see that there is a gap between the objectives of one team and the objectives of the other, and those objectives are not aligned towards some kind of global mantra, global Northern Star of the company, then that's how we can, from the bottom up, start to evangelize internally so that the executives can probably re-evaluate the different KPIs, the different objectives that they're giving to those functional teams, and make sure that the objectives are in sync and not conflicting with each other in order to get to that global objective. Organization plans are really important to make sure that that is in sync. And one of the things, one of the best practices which I always like to encourage around the objectives is to really evangelize for putting some kind of OKR approach into place, objectives and key results.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the time we have conflicting objectives. We always hear stories of kind of frictional loggerheads going on between what sales is responsible for and what customer success is responsible for. So if we can infuse OKRs, for example, within the company, what we can do is say, right, the objective for the whole customer-centric mantra is, it could be something like the NRR, or it could be an NPS, or it could be both, right? I think it's good to have the complementary between NPS, which is a sentiment score, and NRR, which is a financial indicator, right? But make sure that these company-wide objectives are things to which all of the functional roles, not just customer success, is contributing towards. So they will have key results, which are objectives, which are leading indicators, which are feeding into these Northern Star objectives and Southern Star objectives of NPS and NRR, for example, right?
Yeah.
And that's difficult to do. I mean, it sounds good in theory, but it's difficult to do. And you need to get the executive buy-in to do that, right? It's not just the customer success leader who can make that magic happen.
Yeah. No, and I think you've hit on so many key important points too. Like you talk about starting with the education on customer success, and then the ongoing communication, and then that alignment around, like you said, the OKRs and the metrics to make sure everyone, like you said, is rowing in the right direction, right? And I think about a sales team, right? And I know, they're looking to sell, and if their metrics are just sell, but they're selling to the wrong customers, or they're putting them in the wrong packages, that's going to lead to churn, and that's going to have other impacts. And so again, I think that's starting to show the kind of the conflict of those different metrics and the competing priorities. As you work with organizations, Sue, and they're trying to start this alignment, they're trying to get everyone rowing in the same direction. What are some common roadblocks that you've seen organizations encounter as they try to align all these various departments to that Northern Star, metric?
Yeah, and I think really the answer is also so in your question, because I think that one of the biggest challenges that companies are facing is simply because they are parachuting customer success as an operational function, a new operational function. So I think right from the outset, which is definitely not happening right now, but going forward, this is something which we should improve, I think, is really making sure that, right from the outset, we're thinking not product-centric, but we're thinking customer-centric. Mm-hmm. So by that, it means that, we're not just designing a product and then throwing it out to the market and hoping for the best, but we're actually designing an outcome from the outset, right? And this outcome that we're designing is something which everything is contributing to. So it's the product design, it's the service design, it's the way we're engaging with the customers. So one of the challenges is that we're still trapped in this mindset of product centricity and coming up with this wonderful idea and kind of doing our go-to-market and hoping for the best, right? Yeah. So I think, first of all, we should be listening to the market, understanding, what are the pain points of the market and our customers, and designing everything in retrospection based on the needs, and everything in kind of retro engineering based on the needs. I think that's one of the first challenges. I think companies, unfortunately, are still working in silos. So all companies, no matter whether it's a 100-year-old company, which obviously has that ingrained in its legacy of working, or whether it's a startup, we tend to work in silos because I think that's the way we're kind of tuned. And I think, even with today's technology, that is reinforced by the fact, each team has its own tool, and there's no kind of communication going on with these tools. So that kind of re-emphasizes the silo working kind of mantra that we have, unfortunately. I think another challenge is really probably a misunderstanding about what customer success is, whether it's customer success as a team, the functional team, but also this kind of non-recognition that customer success is also something which should be ingrained in all the teams. Not having the top-down buy-in to make that happen. I think, a lot of executives just think it's a kind of flash in the pan and just a kind of a nice new buzzword around customer success, customer centricity, whatever we like to call it, and don't realize, the full strategic potential and differentiator that will make for us, in front of our competition.
Yeah.
And I think another challenge is unfortunate that a lot of customer success teams become the anything and everything departments. It's,
Yeah.
it's what our friend Rav Dalival, is a good friend.
Yeah.
He was famous for coining this phrase, and unfortunately that is true, right? So a lot of the time customer success becomes a little bit like the Swiss knife for doing everything that the other departments don't want to do or don't have the time to do, right? So I think, that there are a lot of challenges that would probably resonate with our listeners here. And the other one, which is what I mentioned, is not knowing how to make that all happen by having equitable objectives, so that each team knows exactly what is their bit to contribute towards creating success for the customers, and what are the limits of their scope, because there's a lot of the time there's kind of trespassing going on between the different roles, and what is the boundary of what's within my scope. If I'm a salesperson, am I the person who is not going to be responsible for closing, or do I also contribute to some extent to the renewal, right?
Yeah.
So we need to have those boundaries and the scope of each role, each mission statement very clearly defined. And I think related to that is the fear that, when we're putting into place a customer success organization, particularly at the very beginning, there may be a lot of pushback from the different roles. We often hear of friction going on between sales and customer success because sales think that to some extent, customer success is probably going to threaten to some degree some of their role, some of their responsibilities, probably even take away some of the ownership that they believe to have with the customer. So there's all these kind of psychological things going on. And when in fact, to overcome all that, you need to do a lot of education around what customer success is, which comes back to my first point. Evangelization, making the different roles, like the sales, understand that in fact, it's not a new role which is going to trespass on their territory. On the contrary, it's something which is going to help them do better their job already, right?
Yeah.
Should make the closing process much easier if done properly.
Absolutely. And even then, if it's the original sales that is still responsible as well, perhaps for upsell and cross-sell, which is the case in some organizations. Of course, customer success is a great lever for that.
Yep.
To help them to identify new upsells and cross-sells, for example.
Yeah. I know some of the successes we've seen really is in identifying new opportunities for upsells and cross-sells through our teams. It's just so easy when you're sitting in there every day, working with the customers, talking about their goals and looking at the weekly changes operationally for the customer and seeing where they're having challenges. It just makes it an open conversation that you don't get to have if you're not having that type of conversation on a regular basis. And that's, I think, really one of the advantages of good CS teams and driving CS through is seeing the customer where they're struggling with your products, and seeing where, especially as new features get added, where those features might help those customers. And then the other part there is the information coming back from the customer into CS, right? Yeah. So that information going back to the product team and bringing that back. So I think you're emphasizing some really important points on the cross-functional discussions that need to be happening, and those need to be happening really on a regular basis between sales, between product, and then on support as well, as customers are complaining about what's happening operationally in the existing functions. A lot of times that information is coming to the CS team in their regular meetings as well, saying, hey, this is where we're struggling. This is where support's not doing what we expect them to do.
I think that really goes to, I think, Sue, like the importance, Sue, like you mentioned, of the education of where does customer success sit in the organization and the value could have to other teams, right, Kev? So like like the customer success team knows those clients so well, like they're intimate with their strategy, where they're heading, and that's feeding sales, right? So it's educating sales on this is going to drive more leads, more qualified opportunities to get into your pipeline. This is a win-win for both of us, right? And for product, hey, we're getting direct feedback on not just the current solution, but where they want maybe products and solutions in the future, right? So I think that's big key in terms of, if we all are working in the same direction, we all benefit here, right? So it's win-win internally, and then win-win from the organization and from the client as well.
Absolutely. And I think because customer success is an operational, the customer success is a functional team, is an operational team. And of course, we've already said it should also be part of the strategy. So it's infused across all the different functional roles. I think we have this wonderful opportunity in customer success so that it actually becomes a catalyst for driving all that customer intelligence internally. And I think in the world of, as I was mentioning just now about customer experience, which started out as a top-down strategy, in the world of customer experience, they did not have an operational team to execute on that strategy. Whereas in customer success, we do, because it's more of a bottom-up approach with the operations. So this is where we can kind of join forces, with this strategic approach, which was historically what customer experience people have been doing for years. And now we have customer success with this operational approach, which kind of joins the bridge between the two, I think. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, as you were talking about a lot of the customer intelligence that's coming into the organization, this is a question we'd like to ask our guests. So how do you see that customer intelligence information feeding into the future of what's coming down the path with AI and how that can be integrated?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we love this subject, don't we? This artificial intelligence subject. I mean, it's something which is on the tip of all our tongues, and I think we've all started to experiment with it. And I think that there's a whole new opportunity for this to combine with the data that we already have. I mean, I remembered when I first started out in customer success, which is going back about 12 years, which makes me feel like a dinosaur. And at the time, we didn't necessarily have a lot of data, customer intelligence data. We probably, we started out with some transactional data, and then we started to get some probably sentiment data, NPS, CSAT, those kind of things. And then more and more, I think, as we're maturing in the world of customer success, we've got more and more data, right? But just having more and more data in itself is not a great thing, because you have to make sense of that data. Right? Like, heaps of data and not like trying to find a needle in a haystack, right? So you need to make sure that you have workflows and tools, and also start to include artificial intelligence to start to have more pertinent data. I think certainly one of the things that I'm really interested in is to have data which is going to help us to have more insights around value for customers. I think for me, this is the missing metric that we're struggling with today in the world of customer success. We have lots of data, but we're still missing data about, okay, has your customer actually received some kind of performance gain, some kind of outcome, right? Now this implies a whole approach. We have an approach which we put into place. It's a framework which we call AMPM, and AMPM means activity measurements and performance measurements. And of course, AMPM, we can't have the afternoon without going through the morning, right? That's the laws of science. So we're saying the same thing in customer success. You cannot have a performance measurement or performance metric if you haven't gone through certain activities which you need to put into place in order to get to that performance, right? So at the moment, that this is something which we've already introduced, and some companies are actually using this. And this goes beyond adoption. I think a lot of the world of customer success is very focused on adoption, because basically it's probably the only data that we have, and which is shared between the customer and the vendor, right? Adoption metrics. If you're lucky enough to be in a company, a vendor that actually has probably adoption data embedded in the coding of your product, so then this is made easily accessible to your customer. And this is something which the customer can follow up and be accountable for in terms of measuring their own adoption. But with our framework, the activity metric goes beyond adoption, because we're actually encouraging our customers to change their ways of doing business. And so for this, we are encouraging them, as a customer success manager, for example, to change their processes so that the tool which they're using is actually camouflaged within their process. We are encouraging them in certain circumstances to change their behaviors. What were they doing before, which now they need to do differently? So it could be behavioral change. It could be an organizational change. In some cases, they probably need to change the roles and the responsibilities of the people who are using the tool in order to make sure that they're getting results. So just to give you an example, it could be around a CRM tool. So you're using a CRM tool, and you are encouraging that salesperson who's using the CRM tool to probably change their role and responsibility as a sales rep. That could be something like, okay, if you want to have an objective, the performance metric could be, for example, I want to generate 10% more closed leads by the end of 2023, for example. That's the performance metric. So in terms of organization, what does that mean? It could imply that, you probably have an additional salesperson within the team in order to get to that objective. Just an example, right? That's an organizational objective. In terms of process, it could be that you need to change your sales qualified leads process. That's another change in the process, right? So again, that's somebody from the customer success team who is going to help to give the guidelines around that. From a tool point of view, that's the adoption. It could be something like, okay, you need to generate plus 20% more SQLs of a profile of an ICP, for example, an ideal customer profile, for example. So there's just a few examples of this framework, and for which I think artificial intelligence can be combined to really have benchmarks on what has been happening before with previous customers in the same verticals or in the same geographical region, which can then be used to predict what is going to happen around the use of a tool and whether or not that particular customer is destined for success or whether that particular customer is at risk. Okay.
I like that idea. So simulation, future simulations for adoption and usage based off of the types of the profile of the customer itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to, with artificial intelligence, we're going to have more granularity, I think, in more what I consider to be customer-centric data from a persona point of view, so start to segment our customers, not just on traditional high touch, medium touch, low touch, based on how much money they bring into the company, but based on really a real customer-centric understanding of the pain points of those customers because of the personas they represent, because of perhaps you could even have an approach from I often like to use the jobs to be done approach as well. So you could segment your customers in all these different very, let's say, customer-centric segmentations and use the artificial intelligence to really deep dive, understand how these different personas are faring, and then just get down to a better understanding of who your real ideal customer profiles are. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Sue. So Sue, now at the end of our episodes, we do a section called rapid fire, right? Where we really get into these hard-hitting questions. Okay, we got 5 rapid fire for you. Ready to go?
Oh gosh, I wasn't ready for this. Yes, I am.
know. Well, this is this is off the cuff here, right? So, all right. What is one hobby you have outside of work that helps you unwind?
Oh, I love traveling. Yes, I'm actually doing a road trip around France in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, nice. Awesome. I love that.
Yes.
Well, that leads into our next question. One place that you want to travel where you've never been?
Oh, well, I've never been. Japan.
Ah, nice.
Yes.
Early bird or night owl?
Neither. No, if I had to choose, I would say more of a night owl. Yes.
Night owl. All right. We'll lean night owl, but we'll put you in the middle. You have a favorite book or a book recommendation for our audience?
Yes. When I was younger, I loved the book How to Influence People.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dale Carnegie.
It was written, Carnegie. It was written back in the 50s, I think, but it's still relevant today.
It does. It still holds up. And so where can people learn more about Success Chain in the work you guys are doing with organizations?
Right. So we have a LinkedIn page. So you can follow us on Success Chain LinkedIn page. We have our webinar as well. Not a webinar, sorry, our website.
Yeah.
And you may also like to follow my co-founder, Jason Whitehead, who does a webinar. So he does a webinar on a regular basis, a webinar type podcast called The Two Jasons. So you can follow us on there as well. Yes.
Like it. Mm-hmm. If I change my name, Kev, we can call this The Two Kevins, but I will see if that takes off. So
the Two Romans.
Maybe the Two Romans. We'll see.
Yes.
All right. Well, Sue, thanks so much for joining us. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Customer Success Playbook. We hope you found our conversation with Sue insightful and that it helps you in navigating your world of customer success. I'm Roman Trebon, and with me is Kevin Metzger. If you like our show, please make sure you subscribe, like it, comment it, share with friends, and provide feedback to us on topics and guests that you would like to see us discuss moving forward. We have some great guests lined up. We have Greg Dane's going to join us. We have Jeff Heckler going to join us here soon, and we're booking up. So it's exciting, and I know we'll have more great conversations like we did today with Sue. So with that, join us next time for the next episode of the Customer Success Playbook.
Keep on playing.